Hello and welcome to the second day of our virtual Global Connected Aircraft Summit titled Cabin Chats. We're super excited to bring you the second version of this event. We have a brand new platform, brand new speakers, great opportunities to connect and network. So we hope you've had a great experience so far as we go into day two. We'd once again like to thank our sponsors for Cabin Chats, Intelsat, Collins Aerospace and Smart Sky for their support. We really appreciate it. We have a lot of great content today, 2 fireside chats with our good friends from Intelsat, as well as a panel looking at enhanced health and safety. So let's get started. We have a terrific opening session today. We have two speakers from Intelsat, two people I know well, Mark Richmond and Carly Heath, and another person I know very well, Norm Houghton from Air Canada. So we have a couple of real different perspectives as we look at the future of IFC. So before we get sort of started and get deep in discussion, let me just ask how everyone is today, and then we'll get started on the discussion. So how are things there for you, Norm, in Canada?
The weather's changing on us, but nevertheless, everybody's healthy, and I think the general mood is in a good place.
Excellent. Let me go to Carly, then Mark.
Yes. Thank you for that intro, Mark. No, fall's here, like Norman said, so everything's good. The family's well. Just adapting here to working at home. So I'm streaming in from Northern Virginia, and happy to be here.
And Mark, from my standpoint, all things are good. The weather is getting a little bit crisper, but it's going to be a little bit warmer today, so we're looking forward to that. And like many of us, except for the critical folks who are absolutely essential in keeping the Intelsat network up and running, many of us are working from home and supporting the business very well from our remote offices. All is good, and we're looking forward to a good session today. So thank you for letting us join.
Well, it's our pleasure. Let's dive into it now. Now we've said hello to everybody. Future of IFC. I mean, we know Intelsat's probably made one of the big splashes in this market this year with what it's done with Gogo. We know Air Canada has been sort of a pioneer in bringing cutting-edge connectivity services to passengers. So, obviously going to have different perspectives. So let's start with Carly and Mark, and one of you can talk about how Intelsat now sees the future of IFC.
Well, I think certainly we're going through a period right now where the industry is reacting to the current realities associated with COVID, but I think the long-term prospects are really positive. I mean, the industry has reacted to challenges in the past and always recovered, and it has and so the opportunity for in-flight connectivity still remains very strong and very, very robust. I think that we're going to see a lot of changes going forward as the expectations of the passengers grow as they return to the skies. And I think we're going to see the airlines taking new approaches to in-flight connectivity as they resume operations, begin supporting passengers, and begin returning to a little bit more of a normal state than we've had in the last 6 months.
Norm, Mark mentioned new approaches that he thinks that airlines are going to take. Is that something that applies to Air Canada right now? How would you describe the airline's approach?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would apply to all airlines, right? I think right now we're in a strange phase, and a phase that we've never, really a road we've never gone down before, and one of a recovery. So, right now it's all hands on deck, all products on deck. We'll be recrafting, going back to the drawing board, trying to figure out not necessarily focusing on revenue, but more so focusing on rebuilding our airline. So the recovery for us is of paramount importance, and Wi-Fi definitely plays a big role in that. Now, how we formulate a Wi-Fi plan that could help stimulate travel is yet to be seen or announced, but imagine that the airlines are working hard at this, and we'll figure something out.
Just to add to what Norm said, I think it's important for us to stop and, take the time to just reevaluate, what Wi-Fi can do for us. Obviously Intelsat is heads down, you know, planning out what our strategy is and how we're going to better support the airlines in this space. The acquisition of one example of how we're thinking about how to be more efficient for the airlines, and I think having forums like the one we're on today allows us to hear from the airlines to understand what their needs are and are they changing. Obviously we're facing some headwinds over the next couple of years, but it's good to understand. Are you looking for connectivity to serve more than just, IFC needs? Is it, going to incorporate, operational needs? Are you thinking about, the service delivery piece differently? And obviously we don't have the answers today, but, part of our role over the next several months, looking into the future, is to better understand what those needs are, because, we're positioning ourselves in a way that will allow us to serve the airlines more uniquely, right? We're coming out with services that are dedicated specifically for Aero, which is something that the market really hasn't seen in the past. And so definitely looking forward to working, not only with Air Canada, just all the airlines, to understand what it is that they need, what it is that they expect from that experience.
And just one thing before I ask a follow-up question. We can ask questions to all the panelists today. So you've got some really good questions for Mark, Carly, and Norm. You've got one of the biggest names in satellite and IFC, and you've got one of the most pioneering airlines in IFC. So if you've got questions for them, please feel free to do so via the chat facility, and we'll get to those questions a little bit later. So Carly, Mark, tell us a little bit more about how Intelsat now plans to serve this market. It's obviously made a big, I said at the start, a big splash in this market. Obviously believes in this market. What does this mean for the customer? I mean, what's this going to mean for Norm in a year's time, and Aero Mexico and others that you're working with? Well, tell us about how it's going to help you serve your customer better.
Well, I think the best way to think about this is in terms of a strategic investment in a market that is growing at double-digit rates. I mean, as the industry recovers and travel is restored over the next decade, we expect very strong growth in flight connectivity. So we think the bringing together of Gogo commercial aero business and the Intelsat satellite network capabilities really brings a compelling value for our stakeholders and makes a tremendous amount of commercial sense. The skill sets and the capabilities of Gogo and Intelsat are very complementary. So that when we close this transaction, it's going to create a vertically integrated solution that's going to bring significant efficiencies and economies of scale, and it really positions us to design and deploy our next generation software-defined AHTS network. And I think that capability is going to allow us to bring a lot of things to the airlines that they really haven't been able to think about in the past, serving every passenger, for example, on the aircraft, and really put us in a position to deliver on those promises and capabilities. Keep in mind, this is, we're taking a long-range view. It's a long-term investment in our business, very strategic and supported by our investors. And we as an industry, we've weathered crises like these in the past. In the last 50 years, airline traffic has always been on a growth path, and we think in-flight connectivity will also be on that same growth path in the future.
And how do you sort of see it looking like next year? I mean, I think yesterday people were talking about the recovery, maybe even 22, 23. Is that what Intelsat is seeing, or do you think it could come even a little bit sooner than?
Well, I think I think we're seeing what everyone else is seeing. We're seeing a slow recovery. There are some bumps in the road. We're going to see that into next year and probably even the year after. You know, it's hard to say exactly when we're going to be back to the normal state of things, but it's probably going to be in 2022, 2023 sorts of time frames would be our estimate based on our conversation with the industry and the general consensus. I don't know, Norm, you're closer to it than a lot of us in many ways, because you're speaking on behalf of the airline. What are you seeing at Air Canada, and how does it look from your standpoint?
I mean, from my standpoint, and obviously I think the word on the street is a 2023 type of recovery. Now, I think, the IFC industry is in a unique position. I think, when I joined 6 years ago on this particular portfolio, there was a flurry of IFC activities, whether it was Delta, American Airlines, Air Canada, United, and a lot of the international carriers like Lufthansa. And, there's a lot of different products that was, blasted into the marketplace all at once, a lot of inconsistencies. Some airlines have varying degrees of Wi-Fi and, in terms of performance. Now, I think, this pandemic has allowed us to reset. We're going to have, more time than we've ever had to think about how best we want to serve our customers as it pertains to Wi-Fi. Obviously, I think the vertical integration when it comes to the service provider all the way out into the space technology is going to provide a ton of benefit. It's how we formulate that benefit for the betterment of the industry. And when I talk about the industry, for me, it's not even about the connectivity industry. The connectivity industry as it pertains to aero, I think we all need to focus on passenger recovery. Let's figure out how we can bring more bodies on those airplanes, and trying to get back to that utopia that we had in 2019, which was one of the better years for passenger travel that we've ever seen. So how do we bring that back using IFC as some sort of a stimulus? At the same time, hitting the reset button to ensure that the service is more consistent, more reliable, and overall a better experience. And for the airlines, there are two major kind of pillars that will drive the experiential side, and that's cost and price to the customer, right? The airline cost and price to the customer. I think if we can solve for those X's, we'll be in a really good place. And on the other side, the big pillar is the hardware, just ensuring that we're in a much better reliability section than we were before.
I think Norm hit on a couple of really key pieces, right? I mean, 2019 was definitely a beacon year for the industry, just in terms of travel, passenger traffic, even as well as just IFC sessions. I think Gogo had on average 180,000 sessions per day in 2019. And so if we think about what their take rates are, they kind of hover around, they're under 15%, right? And so when we think about how do you make that connection between the passenger and an Air Canada brand, using an IFC service that the airline is confident with, is something we're passionate to craft out. I mean, right, today it's spotty. There's all kind of challenges that even we're aware of that happens on the networks, and so it's just a matter of being able to scale a very consistent, very seamless service across the entire cabin, right? It's not just a few passengers we'd like to connect, it's the entire cabin. We want to connect with a premium service, right? So if Air Canada wants to do free or maybe free-ish to whoever they want on in the cabin, that's something we want to be able to design, right? Like on the network side, we're experts in that space. I mean, we've been serving the aero market for over 10 years now. We are on a number of different aircraft today with our services, and it's about just expanding into the managed service business on the mobility, within the aero market. We've kind of seen, obviously the Gogo acquisition points to one piece. We're definitely well underway with designing our next gen satellites, and we've already announced the next version to the Intelsat family with IS-40E, which is covered specifically over the Americas. And so for us, it's just about designing a dedicated service that focuses on the hubs and the routes specific to that airline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think these are really good points. I guess one thing that we in Intelsat are taking away from this are a couple of key things. As we design and build out and develop our next generation platforms focused on commercial aero, there are a couple of things that come to mind, and the key ones are number one, take rates and passenger usage are going to go up. Their expectations are going to go up. They're going to expect more from us. They're going to expect probably a more of an at-home or on the road with their mobile phone experience. And the second is, and this is to Norm's comment, is I think the airlines are going to see it as another capability in their toolkit to drive brand investment by the passengers in their brand and be part of the recovery effort. And so it's that connection to the passenger on behalf of the airline, and improved performance and capabilities are foremost on our minds as we think about what's going to happen for our next generation networks and capabilities.
Let's talk about take-up rate. I mean, that's a very interesting topic. Norm, what can you tell us about the last 6 months? I mean, obviously it's gone down, but can you give us a little bit more information, and maybe what you expect to maybe see over the next 6 months?
Yeah, I mean, the last 6 months, man, it's been quite the roller coaster. I mean, we've the industry shrunk, right? A lot of our friends, family, and very close colleagues are out of a job throughout our industry. So obviously that's taken some toll on the guys that are left to kind of bring the torch forward. At the same time, I'd say it's been filled with some optimism, given that I think everybody now has a part to play in the recrafting of the industry. Imagine that at all levels, right? We all got to be engaged to try and figure out how to design the next version of the airline industry. And it's not just particular or unique to a single airline. I think this is something that anybody or any firm that has anything to do with aero is kind of going through right now. So that, I would say, is lending some level of optimism for the future, given that everybody gets to have a say and contribute to what the future will look like. I'd say for the next 6 months, as I said before, for us, it's about rebuilding. Our network team's working hard day in, day out to try and rebuild what our new network's going to look like. And for us, from a product standpoint, we're going to have to try and figure out how to best build the best products that will suit, during the times of the rebuild, and then trying to figure out if some of those initiatives will go past kind of the rebuild phase into the recovery. So as we talk about the next 6 months, that's kind of what we'll be doing. Our heads are going to be down, trying to figure out what we also got to anticipate all the punches this pandemic's going to throw at us, whether or not there's truly going to be a second wave, the lockdowns. As much as we'd want it, the world's not coordinated. So how we approach this going forward is going to be of paramount importance.
Just to reiterate once again, if you've got questions for Norm, Mark, and Carly, please feel free to do that via the chat. We'll try and get to some questions a little bit later. I wanted to ask a question related to, we all talk about consumer confidence and getting people back in airports, back on planes, and confidence in flying again. How important is the connectivity piece in that? Where does that sort of stand when we're looking to sort of build that passenger confidence again?
Was that for me, Mark?
Yeah, we can start with you, and if Carly and Mark want to add on.
Yeah. Now, for me, connectivity has always been something that, at least we believe can be a significant piece of the customer retention strategy, right? Now with, us going through a pandemic, and one, we thought SARS was kind of the height of what pandemics could look like, and this makes SARS look like a joke, almost bring it down to the chicken pox kind of breakout. Now, that said, I think people are going to want to be more connected when they're on board. They're going to want to talk to their family, their friends, almost as therapy, right? Knowing that getting back on board for many is not going to be easy. It wasn't easy flying for a lot of people. Travel anxiety was a real thing. Now we have this layered on top of it. One easy way to stay connected, stay entertained, is the internet. We all use it every day. If you can imagine your house being disconnected from the internet for a day, just think about what you'd feel like. So imagine now that feeling will start to transcend on board an airplane. So it's going to be extremely important for us to have internet services that are reliable for our customers to stay connected with family, friends, and even businesses.
Yeah, I think Norm makes some very, very important points. The value of reliability and ubiquity of services on the aircraft for connection to the internet. And I'm also thinking about the passenger experience and what gives the passenger reassurance when they're getting on a plane that things are going to be safe and things are going to be somewhat normal. Part of that goes back to, the passengers might be looking for some sort of seamless experience. That is, they're from home, they're in the car, they're in the airport, they're at the gate, they're onto the aircraft, and they're always connected in some way. It's not something special or unusual. It's easy to do and easy to access. And to Norm's point, I think it gives customers reassurance, and I think the airline that can deliver that experience and use in-flight connectivity to do that, I think will be at an advantage, and that's it's a great way to think about it, and it's important for companies like Intelsat and Gogo to be thinking about what am I doing to help the airline connect to the passengers? What am I doing to make it easier for them to travel? And recognizing the fact that we're at home or we're on the road, and we have this certain expectation about being connected, and anything we can do there to create that environment on board the aircraft, I think will be a net positive.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to follow up. We've touched upon, I know Carly and Mark spoke at the beginning of Intelsat strategy for IFC, and they talked a little bit about the Gogo stuff as well. Norm, from your perspective, this is obviously one of the big stories of the year. What are you looking for from Intelsat and Gogo going forward? You're going to be, I assume, talking with Intelsat and others fairly regularly. You've talked about a reset. You've talked about a recrafting of services. What do you need from this Intelsat Gogo combination to help you do that?
Yeah. Look, if you think about it, Air Canada is one of Gogo's largest customers. We've been in a partnership for quite some time. I think since 2014, we were the first to launch aero connectivity in Canada from a commercial airlines perspective. So we've done a lot of pioneering things with Gogo, and as it pertains to our operations with our flight ops crews and our in-flight service, the flight attendant crews, we've done a lot of work. And especially on the passenger front, Air Canada is still the only airline that offers premium internet to our top tier loyalty members. So, what we're looking for out of the relationship, I think, is still TBD in terms of a holistic picture, because there's still a lot to learn. But at a bare bones minimum, a vertical integration from the ground all the way to the satellite, I think, should yield some benefit for the industry, and particularly for the largest customers flying under this umbrella. So, obviously, I think, price, as I said, to the customer, that's of importance. We need to start looking at removing those frictions and barriers that prevent people from going on board, and price being the largest of all of them. And obviously some efficiencies through cost. Right now, the airlines, I would say, are suffering, right? I mean, we're not seeing the same passenger loads that we're used to, and we still own a lot of aircraft. So, we're extremely cost sensitive right now. So, anything that the industry can do to help, that is your boat to try and get our passengers back on board. If we're healthy, you're healthy, and I think that's kind of how we should look at this, a true partnership. So that's kind of what we're looking out of the new venture with Intelsat and Gogo.
Yeah, obviously, the transaction, and it needs to close. So I can't speak on behalf of Gogo, but I can say from the Intelsat standpoint, we'd like to see the relationship grow. We'd like to see it become closer and much more move more and more in the partnership direction, and be able to position ourselves to deliver to Air Canada what they need and what they're looking for. So we look forward to a continued positive and growing relationship with Air Canada. We'd be very clear about that.
Yes, and I would just add, for us, it was an important strategic move to partner with such a powerhouse like Gogo, right? Where combining the relationships that Gogo already has with the airlines, right? We're combining their expertise that they have on the antenna side and the cabin services side. And so when you kind of pair that with all of our capability and kind of just breadth in our network, in the future roadmap we have outlined for commercial aero, together, that's where we see the most efficiencies for Air Canada and other airlines. The cost piece is obviously something we're aware of, that the airlines are very sensitive about. And so as we are parallel pathing, designing those services directly for the airlines, being able to come up with a model that is flexible enough to meet the needs for Air Canada versus another airline that may have completely different needs, that's the value that we're trying to inject into the delivery model that we haven't really seen there before. And I think by having these conversations with Norm and by asking audience questions, it's just our way of letting folks know we're here. We want to, obviously educate the market, but also just instill that confidence in the airlines to let them know that, they can continue to, see the services they've gotten from Gogo, but it's also an opportunity to enhance that service as we bring everything under one roof.
Yeah. And Mark, if you don't mind, I want to throw in a question there before we run out of time. But to kind of add on to what you both are saying, I mean, we look forward to that relationship, right? I mean, I'd say the Gogo team, as I said, these guys have been extremely nimble and agile. We've again accomplished things that's never been done in the industry. So for their survival, and if that means that there's a new partnership, and obviously with Intelsat, we don't really know much about in terms of what you guys do. We know a lot about Gogo, so we have a lot of confidence that the team that takes care of Air Canada today, that we'll be in a good place tomorrow, just given all the cool things that we've done and the great things that we've done for customers. Now, I guess if you don't mind, in 60 seconds or so, tell us more about Intelsat and some of the cool, neat infrastructure that you're bringing to the table.
Well, that's a good question, and the answer is strong and straightforward. Intelsat is a satellite network operator. We're the engine behind in-flight connectivity. We traditionally support Gogo and other in-flight connectivity providers with our satellite network. We will continue to do that as appropriate, and we will continue to invest in next generation networks and next generation capability. Carly, for example, mentioned IS-40E, and the network designs, the network deployment to support in-flight connectivity is going to be driven by in-flight connectivity requirements and the needs of airlines. So we're very complementary to what Gogo does. Gogo focuses on network operating a services and managed services network and delivering services in the cabin. We focus on the satellite network and the capabilities on the ground to support that. And bringing the two together, complementary capabilities, I think makes a much stronger whole, drives efficiencies, drives a total integrated, from the ground to the seat solution for internet, for the passengers and for operations, and makes it possible to build and scale networks to the size needed to support commercial aero. And that capability didn't exist in the past. It was very difficult to design and capitalize that sort of capability as a whole, as an integrated whole, deliver services. And now with Intelsat and Gogo together, it'll be possible to do that. And I think that's fundamentally what we're bringing to the airline. And that's the technology and the network part of it. Also bringing an outlook that's focused on the passenger and the airline needs. And Gogo, has been serving Air Canada well in that case, and we want to see that continue. We would just continue to support the whole as a whole and deliver end-to-end services.
Right on. We welcome you to the family.
Hey, good. Thank you.
Norm, can I get a 60-second question into you just before we close? Hopefully it will take me less than 60 seconds to ask it, but who knows? But you talked about new services, reset, and doing things differently. Is there one example you can maybe give us in less than a minute of a service that you might be rolling out to passengers next year? Something that's really different to what you've done before, a connectivity-based service, just a hint at something of what the future, what it might look like?
Yeah, I mean, I talked about connectivity being one of the core pieces of our top tier loyalty program. Imagine that we're launching a new loyalty program, and that's going to be expanded to, I'd say a much broader spectrum of our traveling base. And imagine that, in partnership with Gogo, we're going to be doing some cool things. Can't necessarily talk about that yet, but, imagine that the scientists are in the background crafting up a new formula.
And Carly, I don't want to leave you out, so I'm going to give you the last 60-second question, and then we'll wrap up. We've talked about this Intelsat Gogo as an exciting combination, and I applaud you to showing the faith in this industry at this time as well. If we look a year out, where do you see the whole Intelsat IFC position being?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. This was a long-term strategy play for us. And so, we envision take rates increasing, 60-70% to those levels. Obviously, that's going to take a few years to get there. But what we're doing in the meantime to make that a reality is building out a purpose-built network specifically for aero. That involves just the inherent resiliency and redundancy in our network. I mean, you ask what we do, Norm. We operate well over 50 satellites today in the geo orbit, and we're continuing to add on. We mentioned some of the upcoming launches that we're actively executing on. And the idea of being nimble enough to serve the airlines with whatever type of service delivery model that they see fit best for their customers is what we're passionate about. And I think it just comes back to, the fundamentals that we have in place around our network. It's an open architecture type of network design, which is kind of different from any of the other vertical integrated strategies that the market has seen. That allows us to pull in capacity if needed, when and where, to be able to react more quickly to the needs of a particular airline. And so again, if you think about a dedicated network that we're designing, from here moving forward, specifically for Aero, that's kind of where we see the value and the efficiencies to come, so that we can, delight the passengers with the IFC experience that works, that's reliable, it's global, and it scales across the entire fleet for an Air Canada. I mean, obviously we are facing headwinds right now, but for us, the Gogo acquisition and some of the other things we've talked about today just highlights our long-term commitment to this community.
Well, I think that's a great to leave the discussion. I want to thank Carly, Mark, and Norm. It was a great way to kick off day 2 of Cabin Chats, getting an airline perspective and the Intelsat stroke Gogo perspective as well. Super interesting. Intelsat will be back with me later today, so we'll be talking. We have Aero Mexico joining in the discussion, so please join us for that later. I'm now going to hop off into the next room and be discussing health and safety on aeroplanes, which we obviously know is a huge topic. Thank you again to all our panelists. Thank you again for our audience for listening in and watching, and we'll see you very shortly. Thank you very much.
Take care. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.